Good evening, everyone. My name is Rodney Lusk, and I'm your lead district supervisor. I'm delighted to have you here at our very first digital town hall. As many of you are aware, we held our open house back in January, and I got the opportunity to talk with a number of you there and to hear your concerns. And what we've decided is that this is a platform where we can get more feedback from our residents in the district, and I look forward to having more of these digital forums that will be focused on a theme. Tonight, we'll be talking about economic development along the Richmond Highway corridor. So for some of you, you might remember during my campaign that I ran on this issue of how can we bring more business, how can we bring more investment along the Richmond Highway corridor. Looking at what we see in the northern part of Fairfax, in Tysons, in Reston, and Herndon, there's all this development, there's lots of technology companies there, and unfortunately here in the southern part of the county, we just don't have that level of investment. We don't have those jobs, and we don't have that new office construction. So what we recognize is that we have to kind of do something about it. And I committed that if I were elected, I would work on an initiative to create an emerging tech accelerator / co-working facility on the historic Richmond Highway corridor. And what we've done over the last few months is to start talking about ways to make this a reality. So we have stated that we would take up to 90 days to initiate a board matter that would direct the county executive to identify a location for this facility, to also identify an operator. We want someone who has familiarity with running this type of operation to be able to help us do that. And then third, we've asked the county executive to identify resources and to think about what would be the return on investment for doing this. What are the benefits back to the community? So I am so excited to let you know that we were able to get this board matter approved unanimously on this past Tuesday, which is about 42 days into our first term here. And what I'll say is that this is going to provide some unique opportunities for our residents. First, they'll have the opportunity to live and work in the same place, because today, many of them have to drive to Tysons and Reston and other parts of the county. Second, we're going to give our kids along the Richmond Highway corridor the opportunity to get exposure to tech, to touch it, to see it, and really to think about how they could become technology workers themselves. And then last, which I think is really, really important, is that we'll have an opportunity to help many of our residents who today are working in retail and service-based businesses. They get paid, unfortunately, a lower wage. If we can get them into a tech position, they'll be able to move into the middle class. And that's what this is all about, and I'm so excited to be working this initiative. And tonight, I want to hear your questions about economic development. I want to hear your questions about this particular project. And I've got my chief of staff here with me, Matt Reniger. So Matt is going to help us by answering, or excuse me, he'll be helping us by identifying some of your questions, and I'll do the part of answering them. So thank you, Matt.
Great. So like Supervisor Lusk said, we're going to try to do more of these. It was really great to have the first sort of in-person town hall that we had at the end of January. We're going to do these regularly, but they're going to be thematic. They'll be focused on specific things. So tonight we're focusing on the board matter specifically and economic development on Route 1. So please send in your questions as they relate to those, and then any suggestions you have maybe for future forums like this that we're going to put together. Sure. So while we wait for some questions to get generated here, I'm going to ask the first one. So Supervisor Lusk, talk about the geography of Route 1 and why doing something like this now at this time and here at this place makes a lot of sense.
So if we look at the historic Richmond Highway corridor, we are at a unique place today in that we are just to the south of the Pentagon and to the north of Fort Belvoir. And we've had a number of new things happen recently in the area. So at the HQ2 for Amazon in Arlington, we've also had Virginia Tech make a pretty substantial investment in what they're going to have as an innovation center. And what we want to do is to allow our residents here in South County to have an opportunity to benefit from some of these facilities that are in our area. So the best way to do that is to think through a strategy that will give us access to emerging technologies, many of them, not just one specific one, and to really think about, can we help these companies grow and develop along the corridor? If they are successful, if these companies are successful in growing, they will graduate from the accelerator and they will take space in empty buildings along Richmond Highway. This will help us also expand the commercial tax base and then drive interest in building new commercial office, which we haven't seen in 2 decades.
So don't be shy. Send your questions in. We're waiting for a few more. But I wanted to ask another one. What is a technology accelerator?
Yes.
So there are different kinds, and I know that you've been thinking about this for a long time, and you have maybe a little bit of a vision. The county obviously is going to be the one who makes the final decision on how we advance it. But what is a tech accelerator, and what makes sense for the corridor?
So this is a great question, Matt. So what I'll say is we don't want to compete with Tyson's, and we don't want to compete with Reston. So we know that they have a strong base of cybersecurity companies, they have a strong base of big data and analytics companies, and they get a strong base of software companies. So the question is, where could we allow the Richmond Highway corridor to differentiate itself? So what I think is that we've got to figure out where in the emerging tech space. So there's this burgeoning series of sectors. Blockchain is one of those. We can look at things like autonomous vehicles and sensor technologies. We can think about, are there 3D printing capabilities? Are there drone technologies that we could basically attract to our area? So this emerging tech center would be looking at a number of those types of technologies to bring to the area and to support them in their growth and development. But we want to leverage what we have as very strong assets. So from a government contracting standpoint, Fort Belvoir is the largest employer in all of Fairfax County.
People don't know that, I think.
And most people don't know that. It's like a sleeper. And they do a lot of contracting. There's a lot of business activity there. We've got to figure out how we can position some of our companies to get a little piece of that. And then the same with the Pentagon. And then to look at, are there things that we can do in automating like financial services payments? We have these things that, cryptocurrencies. We have electronic payments. And there are companies who are developing modalities and techniques for doing that. And we could help those companies emerge along the historic Richmond Highway corridor.
Great. All right, going to say hi to Mike O'Neill. Mike, thanks for getting on. Aaron Campbell, Ginger Schmid, thanks for joining us. Make sure to send your questions through. I'm gonna ask one more while people ruminate on all the pressing matters they want to put to Supervisor Lusk. The next thing I really thought about is, what does this mean for Fairfax County Public Schools on the corridor, but then also folks who are who are continuing their education into the post-secondary level. So workforce development and education, how does this tie in?
So I would say we want to give our kids really an opportunity to learn about what are the different technologies that kind of exist in the workspace. And many of the kids along the Richmond Highway corridor are in Title I schools, and it's difficult to say this, but many of them might not ever get exposed to a tech firm. And if we're able to bring kids into the accelerator, let them see, like, how is a drone made? Or how do you program a drone with software? They might go, whoa, that's something I can do. Or, hey, I know how to use a joystick, and oh, drones are controlled by joysticks. So I think we're going to give our kids along the corridor really an opportunity to see what they can do in tech. And then if we can get these companies to grow on the corridor, they might even be able to work there as well. So that's going to be significant. And then for those who are stuck in, and I don't want to say this in a pejorative way, but you can start off in a retail job, but unfortunately you're not going to be able to afford housing, childcare, and all the other attendant things that you have to pay for as an adult here in Fairfax County. So we really have to figure a way to help those folks get a higher salary. And tech is one of the best ways to get a higher salary.
Absolutely. Okay, we're going to go to, and I'm sorry, Donna, if I get this wrong. This is Donna Monesi. So here's Donna's question, Supervisor Lusk.
Yes, sir.
Has this been tried anywhere else in the county or the region? If so, what were the benefits to the area?
Okay, that's a very good question. So the model that I'm talking about is a little different than some of the other incubation, if you want to call them that, or accelerator models. What we've seen in the past is that some of them are kind of focused on a specific sector or a specific group of technologies. And what I'm suggesting here is that we want to kind of flip that on its head a little. We want to ensure that we're not picking any one or two sectors. We want to have a broad panoply or a broad platform of technologies that we can kind of target and that we can grow. And then second, we want to have a makerspace also included with our technologies. And then third, now I don't know of any incubator accelerator that's done this, and as a third component, we want to have that emerging tech focus as well. So this is what's kind of unique about what we're proposing. It really layers on and kind of bolts together a number of things that would have been in a singular incubator or accelerator so that we can have more probability for success.
Okay, we're going to go to Mike O'Neill because Mike was great and gave me a compliment on how great my question was, so Mike gets to jump to the top of the queue. Mike was specifically interested in maybe tie-ins with higher education, so
yes.
is there a role here for George Mason? Is
yes.
there a role here for Nova? Is
yes.
it a public-private partnership? How's this going to work?
So I love that question, Mike. Thank you very much. We're already talking to Nova. We're already talking to George Mason University. We see that there are some unique capabilities that both Northern Virginia Community College and George Mason can provide as we help our kids in this area and some of our adults think about transitioning into tech. So we're going to want to provide a platform for them to do that, and we want to make sure they get the skills and the knowledge base to be able to enter into these positions.
So Marcio Campos, thanks for your question, Marcio. Marcio asked, how will this affect the Richmond Highway? And so I'm going to interpret that question a little bit to say,
yes.
How will this be impacted to the changes we're seeing on the highway? So we're going to see some infrastructure changes.
Yes.
So what will that mean, and why does that make this, if it makes it the right time to do this?
Okay, appreciate that question as well. So let's think about this. So we've got basically two significant things happening on the corridor here in the next few years. The first is the corridor is going to be widened in a number of segments. And then second, which is really important, is that we're going to be putting together a bus rapid transit proposal. This is really going to help us kind of extend the service area for the rapid service for bus use along the corridor. It's going to be the first driver for us to get the Embark Richmond Highway Plan executed. But let's think about this. This is going to take a few years for both the widening and also for the bus rapid transit. So what I'd like to do is during that time start to develop and cultivate this emerging technology center so that we will be able to have some of those companies progressing and growing. And then so when it comes time for us to get to the bus rapid transit, we can start to think about Embark, and we will have companies that are driving demand for office space that does not exist today.
That's a great segue, and I just want to say hi to Rachel Shea, who just joined, and Dave Harvey, who just joined, and Dave had a question that I think ties in nicely with what you just said. So Dave wants to know, what will the benefits be for entrepreneurs that use the accelerator versus others that may be available in the county or region? And I think that maybe you could expand on that a little bit, talking about this idea of moving them out of an incubator and planting them, the analogy that you used, and what that'll mean for the corridor.
Exactly. So the first part of it, I'll go, so what's the advantages to the entrepreneur? We see that there are lots of collaborations that can be formed by having different types of companies in the same space. I think we have this kind of sense of like design theory where you are trying to solve problems, and the more people you have that you can kind of tap to help resolve that problem makes for a better solution. And I think there will be shared learnings from having, government contracting companies connected with emerging tech companies, connected with those that are in drone technologies and others. So I think the benefit is going to be kind of the design thinking that might come about as a result of this, and then also as you indicated, is that as these companies grow and develop, we're going to want to plant them in a place that they can, find space and that they can continue to find talent, and we want to give them an affordable option to do that.
Yeah, and there's a lot of advantage to with this co-working component of having folks who are working on different things in technology close to each other. You don't know what the crossover is going to bring.
That's exactly it. That's that design thinking and sharing of ideas.
Yeah. Yep. That's great. Okay. We have a question. It looks like for Stephen Levinson. So this is a little related to something you already chatted about. But will Fairfax schools add parallel courses to prepare students for this? So this maybe ties in a little bit to what we're seeing at Mount Vernon High School, and maybe this is where this question's coming from.
No, this is also a very good question. So I was just at a program with Karen Corbett Sanders and Supervisor Stork, where the Mount Vernon High School has now added a dual enrollment component. It's the first school in Fairfax County to do that. So what that means is students at Mount Vernon High School, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th graders, can take classes at Nova at no cost. And so what they're essentially doing is they're starting their college careers 2 and in some cases 3 years early. So what they can possibly do as a result of that is buy down the cost of a 4-year college program and maybe end up paying just for 3 or paying for some fraction of less.
Or make them think about what pathway they want to take, what technology they're interested in.
Right, and what we can do, and that's a nice segue too, Matt, is that we can work with the companies that are in the accelerator and they can help us identify what are some of the needs that your company has. And so what type of employees do you want to hire and what skills do they need? So if we could kind of think about that, get the kids connected to the facility, and as those companies grow and they need to hire people, we could have our kids getting those skills so they'll be perfectly ready when they graduate to take a job in that particular company.
Great. I'm going to ask a question that hasn't been asked in the feed yet, but I think is implicit based off of some of the organizations I saw in the corridor that were helping us promote this tonight. So I want to ask about there are a lot of connotations with housing costs and technology companies. So there's a lot of crossover there we've seen in places like Seattle and Palo Alto. So what will this mean, or how does this play into the housing crisis that we're seeing on the corridor right now?
Yeah, so let's backpedal one step and one point. So today we have a pretty serious issue, and people who live on the corridor are kind of struggling because, again, they're in these lower paid jobs. They can't really afford to pay higher rents. If we can get them prepared for technology positions, again, they'll get paid higher salaries to help them move into the middle class, and they'll be able to afford the housing that's along the corridor. Second is kind of important too, is that when we think about the Embark plan, we have some really great ideas about mixes of uses. So if we're going to be adding more office development along the corridor, that's also going to drive more residential development. And so as we're programming these residential components, we want to make sure that those developers, when they come and say, Supervisor Lusk, I want to build a new tower on the Beacon site, I'm going to be asking them, okay, how large, how many units, and then I'm going to ask them how many of those units are going to be available for those who are working in this community. And we're going to do everything we can. I know that this is an issue that Mary Payton has talked about, and I am fully bought in. Preservation is so critical and important that we're preserving the affordable housing units that are on the corridor today. And then if we're going to be converting a affordable unit into a new multifamily unit, we have to do everything in our power to get a one-for-one match of those units that are affordable in that new development. And I also want to commit to making sure that the folks who live in those communities have the first right of refusal to come back into the community in which they were living.
Great.
Yes.
Okay, we're going to go back to the feed here. This question's from Ginger Schmid.
Yes.
What business market niches are we missing most on the corridor? And how is the accelerator working to fill those gaps? So she gives examples of emergency care, automotive, maintenance, et cetera. And this is something I've heard you talk about before.
Yeah. So, and I don't mean this in another pejorative way. We've got lots of services companies. We've got lots of retail businesses along the corridor. What I'm suggesting is that we have to pivot from those types of companies into tech companies. If you go to Reston and you go to the Reston Town Center, you're going to see Google, you're going to see Facebook, you're going to see Oracle, you're going to see Splunk, Palo Alto Networks. All of those companies are in Reston. Why are they not here? Why are they not in the portion of the southern part of Fairfax County? They're not here because those companies tend to locate close to their partners, their suppliers, and their customers. And guess what? They're not here. So we've got to figure out which areas can we, and I want to say this in a pejorative way, which areas can we exploit? Where can we go in the emerging tech space to create opportunities for this area? And I think, again, sensor technologies, Internet of Things, 3D printing, drone technologies, all of these things could be housed and could be functioning technology sectors on the corridor. They're not at all on the corridor today.
So I think that's a good segue. So what I want to do is cheat a little bit. I'm going to combine two questions, and we're going to double dip on Mike O'Neill. So that's what you get for saying nice stuff about me, Mike. And so we're going to combine Mike's second question here, which is, how will the accelerator be organized and managed? Will it be through the supervisor's office, spun off into its own, through the board, a corporation?
Right.
Which ties into a question we have from Rachel Shea that says, will the accelerator provide any continuing education opportunities and workforce development for adults, not just high school students?
Yeah.
She specifically singles out immigrants, veterans, and other special needs populations. So how are we going to run this thing?
Yeah.
Who's going to run it?
Yeah.
And so how do we ensure, will other people have access to it, and how do we make sure that happens?
Okay, so I got to unpack a few things here, Matt. Jeez. Okay.
Don't blame them. It's not me.
The first part of the question is like on the operations of it.
Yeah.
So the supervisor's office will not operate this facility because even though the supervisor had 21 years of experience working in economic development, I can't pick winners in companies. So what I'm going to say is we're going to have to find someone a lot smarter than me to do that. So we've asked the county executive to do some research. We're working very closely. Both Matt and I have done some tours with the county on some facilities that we think make sense, and we'll be doing more tours over the next few weeks. We're going to identify an operator, and that operator is going to have experience in running this type of facility. Second part of your question is like on those who are, veterans and others. We definitely want to have some workforce development components associated with this. And another issue that I ran on during the campaign is like really supporting apprenticeship programs, supporting opportunities for people to get into the trades. So we recognize that trade positions are positions that help people move into the middle class, and we want to support the pipe fitters, the electrical workers. We want to support all of those, the carpenters who are involved in supporting these apprenticeship programs, and we want to help them identify candidates, whether they be high school students who want to go in the trades, or those who've been underemployed or going back into the workforce as vets.
Okay. I'm going to say hi to Christina Andrews. Thanks for your question. Brandon Shellhorn, thanks for joining. And we're going to take one from Diane Botten. Diane asks, have you narrowed down a specific location for consideration? And I'm going to tag on to that and say, so kind of where are we in this process now? So we have this board matter. You talked about the 3 motions that we have in it.
Exactly.
So how does the process work? What happens now? It's obviously not opening tomorrow. How does this work, and where's it going to go?
Okay. And I'll say this again, I'm really, really excited about this opportunity, but I got to be honest in saying it's not going to happen tomorrow. As much as I would like that to be the case, it's impossible. The county's got to do some research. We are helping the county do that research. The deputy county executive is involved with this. The director of economic initiatives is involved with this. The president and CEO of the Economic Development Authority is involved with this. And both Matt and I are, tagging along and trying to help as well. So we're going to have to do, as I said, additional research and then bring some recommendations back to the Board of Supervisors. And in that research, we will identify a location. Once that's completed, we'll identify an operator. Once that's completed, and we'll also identify the cost and how we're going to pay for it.
So to be clear, what we're going to have here is we've moved this first step.
Yes.
County staff is going to get us all the information now that we've requested.
Correct.
It'll be referred to a committee, and then out of that committee, we hopefully get the recommendation for the next board matter that's kind of the final catalyst that pushes us into action.
Or we get a recommendation from the staff that says we've identified an operator, we've identified a location, and
time to go.
We can roll.
Yeah. Okay.
That's what we want.
Yeah. We're going to go back to Christina Andrews, who
Yes.
we welcomed before, and she wanted to add on to Ginger's question.
Sure.
And she wanted to know specifically what we're doing to attract firms in green tech and the smart use of energy in our area and how that might tie into this.
Yeah. So there is a facility that is connected both with so Smart City Works connected with CIT, and then also Refraction has a program that's connected to that as well. So again, we're not trying to be competitors with others that are kind of in this market area. We would think that construction technologies might be a place for us to kind of focus on. There's no specific incubator or other accelerator that's focused on construction technologies, and Matt and I have had some conversations about how do we use 3D modeling and virtual reality for the review of permits, and how do we look behind a wall and see what's the location of all the wiring, and where's the mechanical, where's the sprinkler, so that you don't have to obviously go and take the wall down to see what's behind it. So there's a lot of technologies that we could connect to.
So that's an example of something new that isn't out there right now that could be developed here, which I think brings up a good point.
Yes.
Will this just be about tech generation or
Yes.
tech demonstration? So is
Yeah.
demonstration a part of this?
Demonstration is probably the most important part of it.
Yeah.
Most important part of
Right.
it. So what we are saying is that we want our kids to get excited about tech, and if we don't let them see it, like in a real world application, then they're not going to really understand it. So when I say makerspace, a makerspace is a place where you can make things, like a drone.
Yep.
And you'll see all the equipment and all the pieces, all over someone's desk, and they will be assembling that. And we'll have kids come in and see that assembly process and really get a sense of, like, once that drone's built, then how do you program that drone to fly? And then you'll see the software component that's being integrated with the hardware. And then you'll see, well, how do you control it? Once you've got the software and the actual drone built, how do you fly it? So then you'll get to see the application of it being flown. So to me, this is going to be like a test bed of innovative technologies, and then kids will be able to see it up close and personal. And I want them to be able to touch it and really embrace it.
And there's a regulatory component too here, because if we're demonstrating technologies on the corridor, you're signaling to companies and entrepreneurs all over the place, this is a place to come test your technology. And
You're right.
Maybe that's where you want to put down roots, in the place where you can test your technology.
Well, yeah, you want to use the word innovative place. So what we're saying is, right now, I don't think anyone would look at this Richmond Highway corridor and say that it's an innovative place. But they say that about Reston, and they say that about Tyson's, because all those companies that are doing innovation are there. So once we start getting this base of companies and we're able to show and demonstrate, as you said, we're going to become labeled an innovative place. So if you're an emerging technology company, and let's say you can't afford $60 per square foot for real estate, but you might be able to afford, I don't know, 30. You might be able to
You
come.
might want to be down the street from Amazon.
And you might want to be down the street from Fort Belvoir or the Pentagon. You might go, that's not a bad location. And there's other companies that are like me that are locating there. Not to say that people are lemmings, but people tend to do what other people do. It's kind of like it's a fad. It's like, what's going on over there? I want to be a part of that. So that's what we're trying to encourage.
Got it. I'm going to jump back into the feed and try to get another question. Justin Edwards, who joined us. Thanks, Justin. Justin wants to know, how is Supervisor Stork participating with this effort? His district borders Route 1. Is his district participating? So maybe you could answer that, and then also talk about maybe how did it go at the board? Was there broad support?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Supervisor Stork and every other board member on the Fairfax County Board of Supervisors supported our board matter on this past Tuesday. He is obviously involved. He and I spoke during the primary and the election. I talked about this a lot. This is like one of my signature issues and platform items. And I shared my thoughts with him early on. And I think he understood my intent. And we will be making decisions that affect both sides of the corridor. There's no left or right. There's no right or wrong side of the corridor. It's just the corridor. So by placing this facility anywhere on the corridor, it's going to support the Mount Vernon and the Lee District sides.
Okay, we got a question here that's been upvoted by a couple people, Kathy and Rachel. Thanks for that. And the question comes from Christoph. The question is, speaking of sprinklers, which you just referenced in an answer earlier.
Yes.
Big shout out to our firefighters from the area.
Yes.
What's your assessment of the impact of the fire on the economic development in the northern end of the corridor?
Okay. So I'll say thank you for that point. Matt and I were actually over at the site on Saturday afternoon. It was one of the most difficult things to kind of witness up close and personal. It looked like a couple bombs had been dropped on it. It looked like a war zone, basically. The firefighters did an exceptional job of first preserving life. We lost no one in this fire, and this is one of the largest fires in the history of Fairfax County. There's no other fire that we can cite right now that's been larger. Second, adjacent properties were able to be maintained. There was some damage to them, but what we could see based on the embers and the height of the flames, that those facilities were definitely being threatened. And the fire department did everything, I mean, beyond humanly possible. Just amazing work to protect homes, apartment buildings, businesses, and we're going to be recognizing them at the board here in the next month or so for the efforts that they made.
Great.
And so, how does this affect economic development on the corridor? This morning, I guess I can say this, Matt and I were involved in a meeting with Supervisor McKay to talk about...
Chairman McKay
yeah. Pardon.
I guess at least you didn't call him Madam Chairman like everyone does at the board meetings.
That's pretty bad, Matt. So I guess I would not be sitting in the seat if he weren't chairman.
Yeah.
So the supervisor, when I say supervisor, he was a supervisor of Lee District before me. So we met this morning to talk about the rebuilding of this project. We're putting together a plan and a process to help this happen as expeditiously as possible. We recognize that this building or series of buildings cannot sit boarded up and charred out as they are today. So we don't anticipate that this is going to have a negative impact. We're going to do everything we can to get this restarted. People are going to start to see some activity on this site relatively soon.
Great, great. Okay, well, we've been at this for a little bit, and just want to let folks know we're going to do more of these. Please send through your ideas for topics for the future, and we'll sift through that and see if there's other things that we can take a look at. Probably just scroll through one more question for the end. We have one from Jackie Lusk, who wants to know, why don't I ever see you, and when are you coming home? So.
Oh, wow. Well, I apologize. As you guys can probably guess, Jackie is my wife. I'm surprised my daughter Addison isn't on there, or my other daughter Sheridan. One of the things I'm recognizing about this role is that we're spending a lot of time working on these issues. This is not a complaint. It's a recognition that this is a serious role and responsibility. We're taking it very seriously. So, Jackie, sweetie, I intend to come home. I promise this is not going to be my permanent state. But as we continue to, make good on some of the promises we made, I'm delighted at what we've been able to do in the 44 days that we've been engaged in this effort, and I'm looking forward to the next 44 days.
Great. Well, I'll turn it over to you to wish folks well.
So again, thank everyone for participating. This was our first ever town hall that's a digital format. I hope you enjoyed it. I enjoyed the questions and enjoyed the opportunity to respond, and look forward to talking with you at a future point. And feel free to reach out to my office if we can ever be of assistance. Matt and I are usually together, but sometimes you might be able to siphon them off if you need something, and if you need to get to me as well, please feel free. So again, thank you very much for your participation this evening.